Hey everybody, this is Way to Fail, and today we are looking at the top 10 new cards introduced in the Curse of Naxxramas set, brought into the adventure mode in Hearthstone. These are all cards you can get by doing adventure mode, and some of these cards are really, really powerful. If you want to see how I rank the other 21 cards and look at the video, see my explanations, and see why I'm wrong out of the 31 card set, feel free to look at my prior videos. But today we're going to start with the top 10, starting with a face you probably recognize as Kel'Thuzad, the original raid boss for both sets of Naxxramas and World of Warcraft. He is a legendary, and he has a really interesting effect in that at the end of the turn, summon all friendly minions that died this turn. He is a 6/8. He has beefy stats. But the thing that is the huge catch is it says at the end of the turn. Not at the end of the opponent's turn, not at the end of your turn, at the end of the turn. He will summon everything that died back to life every turn for the remainder of the game. That can lock down the board, that can keep it clogged, but that can also get death rattles going left and right. It can create for some interesting games. It is a very, very fascinating late game card. But on the other hand, it is a 6/8. It is beefy. It is out of big game hunter range, thank goodness. But it still can be Shadow Word Death and otherwise. I like it. It is going to be curious to see how it works in play because it is such a different dynamic than you see with so many other legendaries, because this keeps things on the board. It's pretty much just a go for the face from here on out, perhaps, or kill Kel'Thuzad. Who knows, one way or another, though. Interesting card. Number 9, Echoing Ooze, a card that's very easy to misread, so let's go ahead and read it together. Battle Cry, summon an exact copy of this minion at the end of the turn. Note that this is a battle cry, but note that this happens at the end of the turn. This doesn't mean you'll get infinite Echoing Oozes. When something is summoned onto the board directly, as you probably know, its battle cry is not introduced, so you'll get 2 Oozes, but this does give you time to do something like Mark the Wild, Blessing of Kings, Cold Blood, any other buffs you might want to try and do with this card. It'll make an exact copy of it that has those exact same buffs. For 2 mana, that can be really, really good. Really good. I like it. Number 8, Baron Rivendare, who is a very famous boss from World of Warcraft if you ever played that game, but this card is probably the reason you're going to be seeing more Kodo play later on here, because it's 1 attack. There's a lot of things that you can, or Shadow Word Pain can kill it too. 7 health. More importantly, your minions trigger their death rattles twice. That means if you want 2 Bane Bloodhoofs, you can have 2 Bane Bloodhoofs. That means if you want to steal 2 creatures with Sylvanas, you can steal 2 creatures. And plus all the death rattles that you have in your new Naxxramas cards, those can be activated twice as well. For only 4 mana, he can be comboed with so many things on the same turn. I can see this card being a standard to play and a card that has to be dealt with, or else the game can snowball out of control. So Baron Rivendare, very good. Only 8 because on his own, 4 mana for 1/7 is not fantastic, and he can die. If you summon him too later, you can't protect him. He can die, but the possibility of getting your death rattles to activate, especially on the same turn you drop Baron Rivendare, can be really good. Number 7, Poison Seeds, the Druid class card. One of the first cards you'll be able to get. My understanding is that with Naxxramas being released, Druid and Rogue will be the first 2 classes that are introduced in there. We'll see if time will tell if I'm right or wrong. Poison Seeds, though, fills in a very important gap in Druids. Yes, Druids do actually have a gap. It is a lack of hard removal other than Naturalize, which is kind of crappy because it gives your opponent a card. This time it destroys all minions, and you summon 2/2 treants to replace them. Now, against rushdown decks and everything, that can be a little bit problematic because, I mean, if you have a board of a bunch of zoo things and then you summon 2/2 treants, it's not like you can swipe them the next turn. But against something like Handlock, which is already a tough matchup for Druid anyway, depending on how you look at it, it can be a 40-60 or 60-40. Poison Seeds really changes the game because those big creatures that a Handlock puts on the board, bum, 2/2, 2/2, 2/2. You don't even have the Tink Master problems you had before of maybe it's going to be a 1/1 or a 5/5. This is just everything is 2/2. Granted, it does destroy your friendly units as well, but in some games that's a trade you're willing to make, especially since it's 4 mana. You can put some other things down. So this not only acts as a destroying creatures, it also acts as a silence. Very high utility. Number 6, Reincarnate. Another great class card, especially if you've been paying attention to Shaman lately. This does look like a dream for Crusher Shaman. to a point, but it's also really good or to a point Crusher Shaman because it can give something an extra life. But it also is just nice from activating even more death rattles. You destroy a minion, you return it back to life with full health. Once again, you can have Bane and Cairn, you can have Sylvanas stealing a creature, then the cat coming back the very next day. Anything like that. Also affects as a full heal for only 2 mana. Can be really, really good, really, really beneficial. 5. Nerubian Egg. Now you may say, why is a 2/0/2 that once it dies becomes a 4/4 really a big deal? I mean, first off, all your opponent has to do is just ignore the card, right? Well, I mean, there's plenty of ways that you can activate it. You can taunt it. If you can buff its attack at all, you can have it moving. This can be a devastating card in Zoo, a deck that has so many side buffs, whether it's from Wolves, whether it's from Shattered Sun Clears, whether it's from anything else. Or even in Rogue, if you just want to backstab this into having a 4/4 Nerubian. 2 mana for essentially a 4/4 is a nightmare. And if you can taunt this up, that's something that your opponent is going to have to deal with and then get a nasty surprise once it hatches. It's probably not going to be much of a silence magnet, but it does have a lot of good potential for bringing out the best or the worst in your opponents. And because it's only 2 mana, it can be placed into a lot of things. The 4/4 Nerubian is a beast, so that's an added bonus for hunters as well. But it gets a number 5 because it's cheap and it can cause your opponent to kind of cry. Which I guess, is that the standard for top cards? I don't know. Number 4 is definitely a card that will make Priest not cry. It's a 3-drop, which 3 is a tough place for Priest as is, other than Shadow Word Death, which you can't always use. But Dark Cultist. 3 for 3/4 is great, but when it dies, it gives a friendly minion 3 health. That means that if you manage to kill it yourself, you can give something else. Essentially a Templar Enforcer that you can control where it goes in the context of a fight. Granted, you have to have something else on the board alive, but if you're a priest, you should be healing anyway. And that is not 3 healing, that is a 3 health permanent buff. So not only is this a 3-drop that priests were kind of lacking as something they can actually put on the board, but it's also a really solid card, even if it didn't have the Death Rattle. The Death Rattle is just icing on the cake. And that's why I have this card ranked so highly. It's just solid all around. And you're going to see that a lot of these cards that are ranked super highly is solid all around. We're done with the class cards. And this is the second highest non-legendary card here, Zombie Chow. Which I will be honest with you, when I first looked at this card, I kind of laughed and dismissed it. But then I realized it only cost 1 mana. Yes, the Death Rattles restore 5 health to enemy hero. That can be an issue if you're trying to rush down somebody, but 1 for 2/3, if you play a Soul Priest, that's 5 damage when it dies, but let's say that you're playing anything other than Priest. Would you want to put this in an aggro deck? Yes, this is an amazing turn 1 play. 2/3 trades into so many things, it survives so many things. You're not going to necessarily be banking on 5 damage right away to your opponent. This is a great turn 1 play. You're going to see this in a lot of decks, I imagine. And why is it ranked so highly compared to everything else? It's just the fact that it is 1 mana. Name another 1 mana card that has this kind of stats that you can drop straight away that are just right on the board. Not something that has a Death Rattle that gets other things. That gets other things right straight on. It's literally, you don't even have to coin it. You just drop it. Fantastic. Very good all around. Prepare for the Chow. Which gets us to the next card, the number 1 legendary on this list, Loatheb. One of my favorite boss fights in Naxxramas, the dungeon anyway. But this card has already been highly publicized as the FU Miracle Rogue card. Battlecry enemy spells cost 5 next turn. Now, the stats 5/5/5, very good all around. If you're not Druid, you don't have a great 5-drop as is. But let's look at the Battlecry, because this is not just beneficial to the Miracle Rogue matchup. Freeze Mage, where they want to nail you down with a bunch of spells the next turn after they Alex your face. Drop a Loatheb, that puts that in there. Unless they want to try and pay 5 mana for the coin even, or something like that. Rogue, obviously, it's good against Force of Nature, Savage Roar. Unless your opponent's holding on to 2 Innervates, they're not going to be able to get that combo off. So overall, it's just a great card that you can drop to really slow down your opponent, because every single class in this game relies on spells, and once you get more game knowledge, you'll understand when kind of the critical turns are this for drop. Plus, It's a 5/5/5, and does your opponent really want to spend so much mana just to try and remove this card with something like Hex or Polymorph or something? Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but it could lead to just a dead turn. But that's the top legendary. The top card overall, in my opinion, for Curse of Naxxramas, I'm sure you're expecting it if you've watched the list now, is Spectral Knight. Cue the applause here. 5 mana, 4/6 stats, can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. The only card other than Fairy Dragon to have this power in here. That means it can't be Polymorph. That means it can't be Fireball. That means you're going to have to trade into it in some way, shape, or form. So it costs 1 more mana. It's not a Chillwind Yeti. It has 1 more health than a Chillwind Yeti, and it can't be hard removed. That's great. I've seen another interesting comparison to a Stranglethorn Tiger, and I don't think that's a bad one because Stranglethorn Tiger starts off stealth, so it can't be targeted the first turn. But this can't be targeted any turn. Now, granted, an Owl or a Spellbreaker can silence this ability to take it off, but still, the fact that it's 4/6 instead of 5/5 like a Stranglethorn Tiger means that it's going to be able to survive, and there's a lot of things that you can trade into for 4 attack. So this card, not only on top of having exceptional stats or a very good stat alignment, the fact that it cannot be removed and it's a 5-drop. 5, once again, is a place where people are not entirely sure what to play unless, once again, you're Druid. I mean, it's not a very crowded area. Yes, you have Azure Drakes, but some people throw Azure Drakes in just because they don't know what else to play at the 5. Well, you're going to be seeing a lot of Spectral Knights. You're going to be seeing this as one of the top arena cards. You're going to be seeing it as one of the best constructed neutral cards that you can put in. And everyone's going to be able to have it once the appropriate wing for Naxxramas opens. It isn't out now, but prepare for the onslaught of Spectral Knights soon. So this is Way to Fail. I've looked at the 31 cards released in Hearthstone's expansion, Curse of Naxxramas. I hope you found the list interesting. I know there's probably some controversy up or now, some places where you might rank cards differently. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And I appreciate you all watching, sticking around. Look forward to giving you all more Naxxramas content in the days and weeks to come. And maybe all hope in the future that Blizzard puts out expansions for this game a little more quickly. But that's it for now. This is Way to Fail. Hope you enjoyed what you watch. See you next time.